Your therapist has become your most expensive friend. You've been sitting on that couch for what, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even a decade? Week after week, you vent about the same relationship problems, you rehash the same childhood wounds, you dive deeper into why you feel the way that you feel, and you walk out thinking you've accomplished something, but nothing actually changes. Your relationships are still broken. You're still stuck in the same patterns. You're still paying someone $150 an hour to listen to you complain about problems that they never help you solve. Now, here's the truth. Therapy isn't failing you because you're resistant to change. It's failing you because most therapists are using techniques that make attachment issues worse instead of better. I know how frustrating this is. You've done everything right. You've been vulnerable. You've explored your childhood trauma. You've identified your triggers and your patterns. You can analyze your relationship problems with surgical precision. But when you get home and you try to actually talk to your partner, you freeze or you fight. You fall back into the same exact dynamics you spent an hour dissecting in therapy. Your therapist keeps saying, just have the conversation, or you'll know what to do, trust yourself, but you don't know what to do. If you knew what to do, you wouldn't be paying someone else to figure it out for you. You're caught in this horrible loop where you understand everything intellectually, but you can't seem to change anything practically. You're becoming an expert on your own dysfunction without actually getting better. And the worst part, you start blaming yourself. Maybe you're just not ready. Maybe you're too damaged. Maybe you're the problem client who just can't be helped. I'm Adam Lane-Smith, the attachment specialist, and I see this every single day. I work with people who've been in traditional therapy for years, sometimes for decades, without real progress. And what I've discovered after helping over 1,600 clients is that most therapy approaches were not designed for attachment wounds. They were built for completely different problems. And when you apply them to attachment issues, they actually make things worse. Now, I'm not anti-therapy. I was a therapist for many years, but I am pro-results. Through my work, I've identified the specific skills that create lasting change in relationship, skills that most therapists were never trained to teach because they're not part of the standard therapeutic education. The difference is that my clients typically see breakthrough results in weeks, not years, because we focus on skill building and nervous system regulation instead of endless analysis and emotional processing. So what you're about to discover in this video will completely change how you think about getting help with your relationships. You'll learn which popular therapy techniques are actually sabotaging your progress and keeping you stuck in expensive, endless treatment cycles. I'll reveal the 7 specific relationship skills that do create real change. Skills you could start using immediately without spending another year talking about your feelings. These aren't abstract concepts or insights either. They're concrete tools that work even when your nervous system is dysregulated. And most importantly, in this video, you'll understand the difference between therapy that keeps you comfortable and coaching that gets you results. Because the goal isn't to feel better about your problems, it's to solve them completely. So by the end of this video, you'll have a clear roadmap for getting unstuck, whether you continue with therapy or not. So first, I want to talk about those expensive venting sessions that are disguised as treatment. Let's talk about some therapy techniques that make everything so much worse. One is this focus on the endless talk therapy cycle. Venting for hours and hours and hours and hours every week, 52 hours a week for 10 years. That makes you more agitated, not less. Clients just talk and talk and talk while therapists listen and listen and charge $100+ per hour. Here's the problem. We do need to process. We do need to share. We do need to talk, but that should be done with trusted friends, mentors, guides, priests, pastor, religious figures, family members, people in your life that you confide in, that you talk with, okay? If you're going somewhere and paying essentially a professional to do this instead, well, 1, you're completely missing those other relationships. Number 2, you're bonding inappropriately to a paid worker. And number three, you go home feeling like you accomplished something, but nothing changed. You would have accomplished something if you shared and bonded with someone in your life and built a deeper relationship, but all you've done is vent at a paid professional with no real relationship that will ever last. Okay? I had a client who paid a therapist for 20 years and got nothing but venting sessions as they went through 2 divorces, right? Count that 2, which means they got married and then divorced. So a whole marriage cycle. The venting did nothing. All it did was give them a false sense that someone cared about them for 20 years. They could have been investing that energy and that money, by the way, into their friendships, their family, their relationships, everything else. 20 years of venting and a lot of money down the drain. Really quick, as an aside, if you're paying $100 a week, that's $5,000 a year. Over 20 years is $100,000. The math is pretty brutal when you start adding it up like that. Now, inside therapy, we also have this thinking about thinking obsession. Therapists tend to fixate, hyperfixate even, on negatives and diving into feelings. Why do you feel that? And what does it make you feel that you feel that? Right? Diving into those feelings instead of solutions. Let's think our way through why you feel depressed. This makes more people stay stuck in their heads. Why do I feel depressed? I will think about it for the next 6 years and pay you $5,000 a year, which, if you're doing the math, is $30,000. We also call this analysis paralysis. There are so many things for me to think about and realize and learn, and I have to think and think and think, but it's so overwhelming. I need to go to someone who I pay to think for me every week. So I pour out my feelings and they tell me what I'm probably thinking, and I say, oh, that makes sense, and then I pay them and go home. This is what the larger therapy cycle has become. Okay, you are rehashing old arguments without resolution. You go in maybe as a couple and you say, hey, help us. And the therapist goes, well, what was your argument about? Let's talk about it. In fact, let's see if we can get back into it and see if we can fix it again. Why do you feel that? It's not that the questions necessarily are even wrong. It's that that's all there is. Diving into feelings over and over and over and rehashing old fights and old injuries without providing real tools for change? Well, we've spent the last 52 minutes talking about why you fought. I guess just don't do that anymore. See you next week. Look, I want to say this, and I believe that feelings are important, useful data, but emotional processing without skill building is useless. It keeps couples and individuals stuck in the same destructive cycles over and over and over. So we have the endless talk therapy loop, but we also have the just do it loop. Okay? Just have the conversation. Just go talk to him. Just give it a shot. It'll go great. This fails attachment wounded people. Therapists say, you're going to have to just do it. It doesn't account for nervous system dysregulation or freeze responses in quiet, disorganized people. It doesn't account for panic attacks in anxious people. It doesn't account for the hard line against arbitrary orders in avoidant people. Most avoidant people go to therapy and they often get worse. This is especially destructive for disorganized people in particular who've had multiple breaks in their attachment styles because of extensive trauma. Did you know most therapists can't even identify trauma appropriately? The nervous systems in these individuals is too frozen and locked up to just do anything. The more they try to push into it and do it, the more dysregulated and panicky they become, and the worse their outcomes, which, by the way, is great for your therapist because now you need them more. I also really hate this idea of the client is the expert. This is hammered into therapists today. The client is the expert on themselves and their problems and what will feel better. The therapist says, you know everything. You don't need me to tell you what to do. If I listen long enough, you'll figure it out because I'm a good listener. And I'll listen and you'll tell me. And then during our session, you'll realize what to do. Now, if you have the tiniest first world problem and your emotional brain is agitated and you talk it through and your logical brain re-engages, you might be able to say, oh yeah, hey, that makes sense. I think this is what I'm going to do about it. And you talk it through. You've talked at someone until you figured out what to do. Now you go do it. That works if your stress is maybe 2 or 3 out of 10. And again, you should be doing that with a trusted person in your life that you then build vasopressin and oxytocin and serotonin associations with, and you build a deeper confiding relationship. Now you're paying a professional who's supposed to be giving you advice and teaching you and training you for what you could be doing with your mom or your grandpa. Okay? Clients get frustrated, and rightly so, during this process, and they say, just tell me what to do. And the therapist says, well, you're the expert. I'm here to help you learn what you know you need to do. Look, if the client was the expert, they wouldn't need professional help. Therapists often won't give direct guidance, by the way, because insurance companies crack down on you if you get advice wrong. There's lawsuits. There's fear. There's just taking away suspending your license. There's so many threats hanging over your head if you try to tell someone, here's what you should do. Your career can now be over. Massive risk if you try to give directive guidance. So because of our systems, it's so much easier to say, you're the expert. I'm going to listen and ask a couple questions and you figure it out. And then if it goes wrong, it's because you didn't figure it out right and you need 6 more months of therapy with me. There's a lot of liability concerns that lead into very passive listening mode. But clients are paying premium prices for what friends and family should provide for free. I get asked all the time, what is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? So I have finally launched the attachment assessment. This is not a short quiz that just spits out an answer after 3 seconds. This is a thorough, in-depth, science-backed assessment. Check it out on my website, adamlanesmith.com, and learn your attachment style, the severity of what you're dealing with, and some next steps you can take right now to build very secure attachment. Finally, we need to talk about the field training situation that creates these problems. Therapy schools teach things that, like, active listening is wrong, passive listening better, proactive, listen proactively. And how does that make you feel? That's appropriate in therapy schools. They're trained to avoid giving specific direction or actionable advice to avoid liabilities. They're supposed to treat the client like an expert. That's the best practice. This creates, again, very expensive, endless treatment repetitions. These techniques persist despite very poor results. Therapists genuinely believe and are taught that this is what they're supposed to do. Remember that textbooks, generally speaking, are roughly 10 years or more out of date for what's actually in the field, and that a lot of psychology is now skewed drastically toward insurance and medication. Therapy models, Therapy is the management tool that you use to complain about your feelings while the person's taking 5 medications to try to resolve the symptoms without ever actually getting to the root. You take CEUs that continuously train you that being directive is wrong, clients are the expert, and how to listen better. I had one therapist that I talked with, one colleague, who was shocked to learn about a skill-building approach where you are thoroughly, extensively training them in skill models. Very few select therapy modalities teach this. There are things like dialectical behavioral therapy, but most people avoid those because they are primarily geared at and designed for people with borderline personality disorder. We are finding some success applying that tactic into a larger population, but again, how's insurance going to cover that if you can't justify it? We also need to talk about the reality that a lot of people get into therapy because someone told them they're a good listener. So then they get into therapy and are a good listener. There's also a business model problem here. Long-term therapy relationships like this, by the way, I told you those numbers. If you go to 1 therapy session a week and pay $100 and you do that for 6 years, that's 30 grand. Right? 20 years, it's $100,000. If you're also paying into a medication provider, if you're also paying into blah, 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 right? We're talking so much money. If you're on government help, right, then the taxpayers pay for an overwhelming amount. I remember one client that they did the math. Their pills were costing the taxpayers $1,000 each. No wonder that client was on more than 20 medications, by the way. Okay? There is no incentive in the system to create rapid, complete change in therapy. In fact, you're incentivized not to. You're punished if you are. Attachment work, on the other side, completely different approach. When you resolve real attachment work through direct skill training instead of endless emotional processing, you actually get results. So let's talk about this. If traditional therapy techniques are keeping you stuck, what actually works? Let me show you the skills that create change in weeks. Let's go through those 7 skills right now. Skill number 1, nervous system management for action. You've got to first learn regulation, not for feeling good, right? The point of learning to regulate your nervous system is not, I feel better. It's to be able to get things done. Most therapy falls short here because the target goal is either reduction of symptoms or trying to feel better. Okay? Learning regulation is not really just for feeling good. Yes, you will feel better, but you need to be able to get things done. Again, this is why the just do it doesn't work, because your nervous system isn't working yet and you can't do it. Managing your nervous system so that you can actually complete tasks and conversations is mandatory. This is very different from therapy's focus on feeling better without behavioral change. Regulation becomes a tool for accomplishment, not just comfort. And then you can begin to track, okay, here's the difficulty of the task. Here's where my nervous system is. I need to bring my nervous system under that level, and then I can manage it appropriately with that buffer. So now it's just a question of how do I additionally buffer and manage my nervous system? If I can bring it down very low, I have a tremendous amount of capacity. It becomes a capacity-based equation instead of hoping and feeling stuck. Now, there are multiple steps here that lead together to solve actual problems. But first, regulate nervous system and build capacity to solve. This works when traditional therapy fails because traditional therapy usually regulates your emotions to kind of feel peaceful. You come in upset and crying and scared and nervous. They kind of talk you through it. You feel better. You learn that when you're scared and nervous, you have to come to them and they make you feel better. You're now dependent and helpless without them. And now every week you're calling them begging to get an earlier session because you can't regulate without them. That's a problem. Okay? With attachment coaching, we teach you to regulate your nervous system to take effective action. We want you independent and building specific capacity so that you can begin doing your work without having to wait, and you're not coming in every week begging for help. We're here to help, but we want you independent and structured. I had one client who learned to finally have difficult conversations in their marriage. They'd been married for 12 years and couldn't have difficult conversations because they would freeze every time. They learned to regulate their nervous system. 3 weeks later, they could start having those difficult conversations that therapy had not allowed them to have in 5 years of therapy. Let's say it another way. Regulation is a means to an end. It's not the end itself. Yes, it brings relief, but it's a means to a better end, which is actually doing the work and solving the problems. Once you're regulated, let's jump into the next skill, okay? Communication scripts. I have to give my clients word-for-word scripts for difficult conversations because when you think about it, young kids growing up in healthy, secure families, they learn scripts. They learn what to say. They learn how to phrase it. They learn how to share. They learn how to connect. They learn how to articulate. These are skills. And we take this for granted because we just assume I should know the words. No, if you've never heard French, how are you going to speak French? Right? You have to learn it gradually over time. Securely attached kids get 18 years to learn that language. You didn't. So word for word scripts for difficult conversations. Most therapists will say, just go talk to them. Just go speak French. You've never heard French in your life. Just go do it. Your nervous system's freaking out and erupting. You're having panic attacks. Just go do it without providing the actual training. This is why in my coaching practice, we have to give exact verbatim scripts of how to communicate effectively. You, if you're watching this right now, what you should be doing is taking notes. I'm going to be managing my nervous system. Now I'm going to learn and practice scripts for difficult conversations. Start writing down phrases that sound good to you. I have a million of them through these videos, right? Write down phrases that sound good. Write down phrasings that make sense. Write down ways to articulate. Plug those in and start testing and seeing how do people respond differently with a different language. Okay? Begin working on that. People need specific words. They need to know the language to speak, not just encouragement. Okay? This takes the guesswork out of emotionally charged interactions. There are real negotiation skills that need to be put into place. And that's point number 3 here. The third skill is negotiation. Most people walk into their relationship structures thinking they have to try to beg or have transactions. That there's a third option called negotiation. Now, this sounds like a dirty word for most people, but it's not. A negotiation is capacity. It's a wife and a husband, and the husband says, sweetheart, I love you so much. I need us to be having more physical connection in the bedroom. It seems like it's only once a week. I really need more. Is there a way for us to do that still feels comfortable and safe? And it's the wife saying, I would love to give that to you. Can you do this for me and give me this emotional connection that I'm really feeling starved without? If you can do that for me, I can grow my capacity to give you that physical love as well, and we can both be so happy. That's negotiation. It's not a transaction. Hey, babe, can I have more sex? Well, yeah, that'll be $200, right? Or, hey, I'm starving emotionally. Can you love me? Well, only if we have more sex. No, this is what I need from you. I want you to feel okay. Can we do this? Yes, I would love to do that. But for my capacity to hit that point, here's what I would need. Can you do that for me so that I can give this to you? Yes. Even that right there, those scripts I just gave you, is something that most couples don't know how to say. That's why most couples default to, it's kind of been a while, huh? I just not like touching me anymore? Or, hey, you know what? I'd probably feel more like I want to do that if we spent more time together. There's that different languages in the scripts. But negotiation is a third skill of being able to be controlled in your emotions, disciplined enough, regulated enough to be able to say, yes, I want to help you, but I have a capacity issue. Can you help me? Can you give that to me? How much can you give right now? How can I help you grow your capacity? What can I do for you? How can we take care of each other mutually? Having discussions about mutual capacity instead of angry demands, learning to talk about what each person can realistically provide, this is the third skill. If you can do this in a relationship, now you can have a peaceful, mutually fulfilling relationship structure. Most therapy, again, will tell you, go tell your husband that you need more emotional intimacy. Just say it. He owes it to you, right? You have the angry therapists in there too, by the way, that do that, right? Or, you know what? If she's not putting out, it's probably not the great relationship for you. It's probably over. Capacity-based negotiations. That's something most therapists will not teach you. Skill number 4 is fear testing. Confronting your fears head on instead of ruminating over them endlessly. You need to be testing what people actually think about you versus endless wondering. I think he's mad at me. I think she says this. I think she feels this. I think he says this. I think. Okay, you need to be externalizing those interior thoughts through direct communication. Rumination and obsession and guessing keeps you trapped in your head. Now, I will say that some therapists do eventually get to a place where they say, well, you should probably ask him. There is this technique called reality testing that can be useful, but very few therapists really make use of it. And even if they do throw it at you, they haven't taught you to regulate your nervous system yet. Just do it. Right? Fear testing comes after all these other skills. They stack. Rumination keeps you stuck. Reality testing frees you from fear and guessing. This means you move from an internal anxiety to external reality testing because of the way things have stacked, because you have the skill training to speak out loud and you have the scripting to do it, because you have the negotiation focus if something does go wrong, because you have a regulated nervous system. Now, as you do this reality testing, okay, you break through that rumination assumption cycle. Ladies out there especially, right? Women are very vigilant around what their partner thinks of them. Imagine if you could go to your partner and say, hey, I've been really worried lately that you might think this about me. Could you tell me if it's true? If it is, can we work on that? And if it's not, could you please let me know so I can stop worrying about it? And they go, wow, I'm surprised you think that. I don't think that at all. Really? Are you sure? You seem to. I don't think that at all, to be honest with you. Where are you seeing that I seem to think that? And I'll tell you what I actually think. Imagine being freed from 90% of your guessing and worries and fears. I had a client who was married for 17 years before they finally discovered their partner's real thoughts versus their feared thoughts. I had one client in particular that after 13 years together, she assumed her husband had racked up 5 or 6 unforgivable things that she had done that she could never, ever work past. And when she finally went and asked him, "Are there things that you can't forgive me for?" he was shocked. He said, "What? What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, this and this and this and this." And he goes, "Well, yeah, those were annoying at the time. I had forgotten about them. I don't really care." She was blown away. She'd been living in hopelessness that she would never be forgiven for things he had forgotten about and didn't care about. Okay? And this is why the next skill, number 5, is externalization. Externalization is when you trust the people around you and externalize those feelings out to them. It can mean a lot of things. But when you stop creating stories in your head of what people think of you and you start external testing, reality testing, but taken to another step. You start working with the people around you and asking them things directly. You use reality testing for internal processing. And then you begin asking them questions. Externalizing your questions, externalizing your understanding, processing with them. That thing you've been doing with your therapist for 10 years and paying $100,000, right? 50 grand, only 50 grand over 10 years, by the way. That thing that you've been doing and paying $50,000 for, you start doing with other people. You start processing with them. You start being understood by them. You start understanding them. You move from mind reading to actual communication, and then proper skill building, and then proper relationship building as you externalize your internal experience. Most people are so collapsed and imploded that they can't externalize at all. They can't even get out, really. Get out maybe is a better word for this than externalize. To get out. This builds genuine intimacy through vulnerability, genuine intimacy. The kind that you're getting from your therapist instead. Finally comes skill 6, which is skill assessment. Measuring your exact skills in specific areas. You need to start understanding, like we've talked about in this video, that everything that's wrong in your life is a skill issue. This does not mean that there are no issues that were ever laid on you that are unfair. There are many unfair things in this life, but most of the problems in your life come down to skills you never learned. And it's not your fault. If you didn't grow up in a family speaking French, you won't learn French unless you really deeply invest. Okay? Measuring your exact skill levels, finding your gaps, and not saying I'm bad because I have a skill gap, but I never learned here and now I'm going to. That means assessing your current abilities rather than just exploring your feelings. You need targeted growth plans for skill development. There is a huge difference between gaining insights in therapy and measurable competence in your skills. You need to treat your relationship gaps just like any other skill that can be learned. You're not a carpenter because you never learned carpentry skills. You're not a master at relationships because you never learned great relationship skills. That can be fixed. That can be fixed. And the most important piece is once you have those skills, you can begin doing skill number 7, which is crafting experiences that change your brain chemistry forever. Skill training leads to consistent, predictable experiences that permanently shape your neurology in a better way. Your biochemical reality shifts through guided experiences. New experiences of finally opening up to your partner, getting that connection you need, mutual fulfillment, freeing yourself from fear, externalizing your processing, understanding what they need, your nervous system being calmed, and finally feeling fully embraced so that arguments and disconnections become a factor of growth and connection instead of shattering. That shifts your brain process. Your brain now is less afraid permanently. This isn't just understanding trauma. It's creating new neural pathways on purpose. If you sat in therapy for 20 years and paid $100,000 and you have not worked through building new neural pathways, you're still rehashing trauma from childhood, that is a waste of your time. It's all about creating new neural pathways because what you've actually done is spend 20 years building neural pathways that say, stay here. Process forever. Depend on this therapist. Pay them until they retire. I know that a lot of the people watching this show right now have had attachment issues for their entire life. That's why I want to invite every single one of you to check out my attachment repair program. It just might be the jump that you need to go from insecurely attached and lonely and frustrated to fully secure, connected, and bonded in a great relationship like nothing you've ever felt before. Check out my website, adamlanesmith.com, for the attachment repair program. Let's put it another way. Traditional therapy teaches you to understand why you do things. Attachment coaching, like with me and my team, you learn to do things different. I had one client who finally, at the age of 53, stopped overanalyzing and started practicing. Now, over the next 6 months, she reshaped every relationship in her life, changed her entire neurology and all her pathways, changed her nervous system, changed her hormones, even diminished her chronic pain because of the stress levels going down. 6 months, 53 years of age. Okay? By the way, she had been in 35 years of therapy. Wherever you are right now, whatever you're doing, you need to shift and have a permanent focus on complete results through experiential training, all those 7 skills we just talked about. But you might be watching this right now wondering, hey, Adam, how do I know if I'm ready for this kind of direct skills-based approach? It sounds a little intimidating, right? A lot of anxiously attached people, they think the problem is them anyway, so they're afraid to jump in skill training and learn that they're never going to get better. Let's talk about when you've hit that wall in therapy. When therapy has stopped working, you usually get very frustrated, okay? You plateau, and that just tell me what to do desperation starts really setting in. When clients are frustrated and asking for specific guidance, saying, I don't know what to do, somebody just tell me what to do, that's where I know somebody's ready. This signals they've hit that therapeutic wall. It's not resistance. Therapists will say, why are you resisting? You should just be listening. You should just be talking about your feelings. No, you've hit a wall. You want to know what to do. You're ready for concrete direction instead of more exploration. I remember in my very first year of therapy, coming out into the field and having all that training about passive listening and then getting clients who were saying, just tell me what to do. And I remember flashing back to the trainings of don't tell them what to do. Don't tell them what to do. Don't tell them what to do. And as I began to say, they need it. So I started telling them what to do. Massive, explosive growth for my clients. Undoing the training helped a lot. So clients who are ready for concrete direction instead of just endless exploration, that's a big sign. Frustration with lack of progress, not with the change itself. You're not frustrated that the change is happening. You need progress now. Okay? The ones who are not ready are the ones who come in and say, I don't want to do that. That feels uncomfortable. Why should I have to do that? I hate to say this, but some of the people here on this channel, usually not the people who stay for very long, not irregulars. I love you guys. You're fantastic. But some people come through on videos that go viral and comment, why should I have to do this for them? When really what I'm teaching is how to build a secure relationship for both of you. See, I don't teach endless catering here on this channel, but the people who roll through and get angry at me and claim that I am, they're not ready for change. They want to go to therapy for 20 years and spend $100,000 complaining and crying and have no real friends in their life and no real meaningful relationships and never achieve change. They want to sit there miserable for that long. That's why they come to my channel to complain and try to stop other people from getting better too. The hard reality is that it's much easier to talk about your problems than to solve them. And not because solving your problems is actually that hard, but it's uncomfortable. Most people are programmed to run screaming and crying away from anything that feels uncomfortable. And that's why you have to get miserable enough to hit a sort of rock bottom where you then say, okay, I'll do the suffering misery of learning the skills and making the changes. Most people have to reach absolute misery. And I believe that's one reason we as a species have the ability to experience depression. I think it gets us to a place where we are miserable enough that we'll try anything. I think that's one adaptation that probably has got away from us in the modern day. But if we can listen to what our body is saying and listen to what our mind is telling us, it's saying, I need answers. I need to change now. Look, what I have shared with you so far represents well over a decade of working with people who are stuck exactly where you might be stuck right now. Endless therapy, lots of insights, zero practical change in their relationships. The 7 skills I've taught you so far, they're not just theory. They're the exact tools my clients use to transform their relationships in weeks, not years. But here's the thing, not everyone is ready for this approach. Some people still need to sit and process and understand before they're ready to build and practice. And if that's the case, if you're still in the understanding phase, that's perfectly fine. I'm never going to judge somebody for that. The key is knowing where you are in your growth process and not waiting for someone else to tell you when that person is incentivized to never tell you. So if you are tired of analysis, if you are ready for action, if you want skills instead of insights and feelings, if you're frustrated with your lack of progress despite all your therapeutic work, then you might be ready for attachment-specific coaching. If you are, there's more information about working with me and my team in the description below if you want direct, results-focused help with your relationship patterns. But first, let me show you exactly how these skills get implemented. The skills implementation process is where we go from understanding problems to solving them completely. We begin with an assessment and a targeting approach. We measure your specific skill deficits instead of exploring general feelings. We have to identify exact areas where competence is lacking. This doesn't judge you, by the way. It simply looks and says, what have you had time to learn so far? What have you had the ability to learn so far? Who has taught you? Where are your skill sets? Okay. We created a targeting growth plan based on those assessment results. These are your 6 skills that are wounded and lacking and short. And that's why you're suffering. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because you are missing these skills. Here's what we're going to do to show you exactly how we're going to grow those skills. We treat relationship skills like any other learning ability. It is not a judgment. It is not, you're not good enough. We move from vague work on communication to specific skill development, articulation of needs, negotiation of capacity, right? Very specific. By mapping that current level and then building a growth trajectory, you can understand what you should be seeing and when, and you can control your own growth. You're not coming to therapy for 10 years hoping it gets better someday. Stop and imagine that for a moment. Imagine knowing exactly where you are in your skill training and relationship structure and knowing exactly where you need to go and exactly how you're going to get there with clear milestones for progress instead of endless exploration. Okay. I had one client come in with 6 skills, 4 and below out of 10, like really brutal. Okay. We built a 90-day skill development plan and saw huge growth across their skill chains that they actually could feel and measure and see. It is so much fun to gamify the system and show somebody how their skills are growing, but then map it onto their real-world experiences at home. Did you have this conversation with your wife? Yes. How did it go? Great. That's because you've got a 30% improvement over here on skill on negotiation of needs and capacity. And you have this improvement over here on practicing empathy and validation. Like this is what's driving that result. So here's how you're going to do it going forward. Imagine knowing you won't go backwards because you have the skills permanently. Measurement creates accountability and motivation, by the way. Many people come in and they feel themselves start to drag and they say, I just wish I had someone keeping me accountable. Guess what? This skill set, not in a mean way, but in an encouraging way. Look, your growth has slowed down. How can we together get your growth to speed up again? Well, I'm not sure. I think this was stuck for me. This is a challenge and this felt a little vague. Let's clarify it immediately. This is the difference between you hopefully getting insight over 10 years and $50,000 versus skill competence growing in a matter of weeks. Understanding why you struggle and learning to succeed. Insight without skills does nothing. That equals permanent frustration. Competence without perfect insight will still get you results. So skill training gets you the results you're looking for, but competence with insight and guided growth, now that's the winner. Now, it's never enough to just learn skills. If I train you on a whole bunch of skills and then put you in a cabin in the woods for the next 50 years, you won't actually feel better. You'll just feel miserable and alone. Okay? You won't use the skills. You won't change your brain chemistry. The skill training leads into, what did we say earlier? Skill training was number 6, right? Experience crafting. Your experiences drive neurobiological changes. As we create specific experiences that rewire your brain together, you see your skills deployed, and they lead to the formation of new brain pathways. You have biochemical and hormonal changes that take place through structured experiences. You've now learned a 30% increase on negotiating for capacity and a 30% increase on validation and empathy showing. Go talk to your wife about building that sexual connection and sharing her emotional intimacy as well, and then see the results. And as that husband gets fully embraced by his wife and sees her joy and the connection, his brain remaps and says, I should always talk to her about problems. I should never be passive aggressive again. It was failing me. I should always go toward her and solve problems with her. I should listen more honestly, but also I'm going to be well received by her because she actually loves me. We see this huge upsurge in all of his functioning and a huge change in his behaviors. That's brain remapping. Those successful interactions change the way your brain works forever. It's not just talking about change, it's actually experiencing it. That's why those guided practice pieces are so important. You practice them with us, then you go have the full experiences. You get that feedback, you come back, you tell us how it went, we remap and do more experiences for you. As clients are practicing scripts with us, they feel skill competence. As they then deploy that skill successfully, they are received so differently and their brain chemistry changes. Guided experience prevents re-traumatization and the breaking of pathways, because your brain pathways can still get worse. Now, if you've been in therapy for months or years without seeing real change in your relationships, please know that this does not mean you're hopeless or that you're resistant to growth or that you're failing. It likely means you've been using tools designed for totally different problems from yours. The frustration you feel about paying someone to listen to the same problems over and over again is completely valid. And you deserve more than expensive venting sessions. You deserve actual solutions and practical skills. I will say this, your willingness to question whether your current approach is working shows incredible self-awareness and courage. Most people keep doing the same thing forever, hoping for different results. So the fact that you're looking for better tools means that you are ready for better results. There's also nothing wrong with wanting concrete guidance instead of endless exploration. There's nothing wrong with preferring skill building over emotional processing. Different approaches work at different times for different people on different problems, and that's fine. But I'm willing to bet that if you're watching this video, you're ready for some real change. Now, the skills that I've shared here today are not theoretical concepts either. They are practical tools that have helped thousands of people create lasting change in their relationships. The same skills that work in weeks instead of years, by the way. Your attachment patterns, if you've been paying attention to this channel, you know they are not permanent. Your relationship struggles are not unfixable. Your nervous system can learn regulation for action, not just for comfort. You can develop the exact skills you need to create the relationships that you want. Then you can have the experiences that change your brain forever. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who transform isn't even willingness to change. It's access to the right tools at the right time. When you learn skills that actually work for attachment wounds, progress usually happens very quickly. You don't have to spend another decade in therapy hoping things will eventually click, and you don't have to settle for understanding your problems without solving them. If what I've shared here today resonates with you and you want to know exactly where you are in your attachment journey, I've created something that will help. Take my free attachment styles quiz. You'll discover your specific attachment style, you'll understand exactly how it's affecting your relationships, and you'll get personalized insights about the skills you need to develop. And this isn't another generic personality test, by the way. It's a comprehensive assessment based on the same framework I use with my private clients. You'll get detailed results that explain your patterns and point you to the specific tools that work for your attachment style. If you want to take that quiz, click the link in the description now to take that free assessment. Don't spend another day wondering why your relationship keeps following the same painful patterns when you can have clear answers and a path forward. Make sure you click that link, take that quiz today. It's free. I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. Thank you for spending your time here with me today, and thank you for your trust. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, Maybe tell me in the comments how many years you've been in therapy. I would love to have a running tally down there and see that. I do read all those comments, by the way, you guys. Thank you. That's how I knew some people come in and say, hey, I hate this and why should I have to change? You only have to change if you want a better life. That's the reality. I'll see you in the next video.